Welcome everybody to Torah of the Heart. I'm Rabbi Mark Siedler, and today we're going to talk about good and bad, right and wrong, which makes a huge difference in your life. How you look at the entire world, whether you think there's good out there, there's bad out there, what you do about it, it matters completely. This is absolutely foundational. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the Torah, and we're going to kind of look at the source of all this, going back to the tree of knowledge of good and bad, or as some of us might like to say, good and evil. So let's go look at the original Hebrew first. I love singing. The Hebrew Bible was actually meant to be sung. So in fact, everything has a melody in the entire Hebrew Bible. So I'm going to sing it to you, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more. Vayitzmach Adonai Elohim min ha'adama kol etz nechmad lemarev v'tov lema'achal ve'etz ha'chayim b'toch hagan ve'etz hadat tov v'ra. And to translate it, and God planted from the earth all sorts of trees that were both beautiful to look at and to eat, good to eat. And the tree of life in the center of the garden, and most importantly for our purposes, and the tree of knowledge of good and bad, or good and evil, as some say. Now, let's talk about that. What's really interesting is we're given this garden. Now, the Garden of Eden, supposedly that's the good old days, the way we originally were. And, a lot of people long to get back to the Garden of Eden, so to speak. And in the Garden of Eden, there were things that on the outside looked great, and consuming them, taking them in, was also good. That was most of the trees in the Garden of Eden. Then we're told about two other special trees, though. One, the tree of life right in the middle of the garden. We're not going to deal with that here, as interesting as it is. But then there's also a tree that's called the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Now, that tree, notice, by the way, it's not in the middle of the garden, and it's not said about it that it's good to look at on the outside or good to eat on the inside. And in fact, we're actually advised, this one, guys, I'm telling you, stay away from it. Now, it's kind of curious, so God creates this interesting tree and says, don't go for it. Now, we humans, of course, some of us love to rebel and do what we're not supposed to. So, of course, we decided to go for this one. And whose responsibility was that? Of course, ours. There's all this passing the buck stuff. Who made me eat of it? But all nonsense. We decided to consume that fruit. Now, there's two ways to understand what that fruit was about. One way, which a lot of people take it, is that literally there is good and there is bad or evil in the world. And all this tree did was give us an awareness of it. Instead of the wool being over our eyes, so to speak, and not having any awareness, some people understand that this tree just gave an awareness of something that already existed, namely good and bad, or good and evil. Now, I choose to understand this in a different way. The way I understand it, and this is part of what's called the non-duality thinking, or non-duality way of being. Duality says there's a good and the bad, and it's just the way that it is. And of course, if there's a bad, well, then we have to protect ourselves from it. We have to defend ourselves, which lots of people are into things like weapons to protect themselves. Other people are into laws to protect us, whether it's laws of the country, like we have here in the United States, or whether it's so-called divine laws, like a God who says, this is right, this is wrong, and you just do the right stuff, stay away from the wrong stuff, everything will be hunky-dory. That's when we create an external standard of good and bad. And that's the world of duality. Now, there's another way to look at it, which is good and bad is actually our creation. It may not actually have existed until we ate of that fruit, so to speak. This may only be a matter of perception. Let me elaborate. When we look around at the world, it's easy to say, I'm a pretty good person, my family's pretty good, you, my friends, are pretty good, but those people out there, they could be other people in your family, in your town, in your country, in the world, other religions, other political persuasions, other sex orientations, whatever it is. It's easy to point the finger and say, you know what, they're just bad, they're evil. Now, the problem with that is, if you really think about it, is there any real dividing line that you can honestly say exists between some theoretical good and some theoretical bad? Is there some dividing line that you could actually say everybody in the world would agree on this? Now, you and I both know there is no dividing line that everybody in the world's going to agree that this kind of a person's good, this kind of person's bad. Doesn't matter what standard you come up with, it's completely a subjective matter. Which means, really, if you want to have a world of bad, then we're going to have to call everybody bad, not just some people, because it's artificial. In fact, if they're bad, the real hard thing to swallow is I'm going to have to say, well, I'm bad also. I got my stuff. You have your stuff. So this world of duality is a problem because there is no objective standard that we could all agree upon. Never going to happen. And basically, if they're bad, I'm bad. So instead, many of us have chosen to look at the world through non-duality lenses. We all have lenses on. Some of us call them beliefs, limiting beliefs. But we always see the world through some sort of lenses. And if you see the world through the lenses of duality, you got good and bad, and then you're classifying every person in this world. And then you're deciding, what do I need to do to defend myself, to protect myself and those I love from this world of bad? The alternative is to say, no, this is a world of oneness. We're all one. We're all connected. And we all have these different aspects to us. And there are things that you do that I might say, I could call those wrong or bad if I were to play that game. And there are things I'm doing, there's no question in my mind. You'd look at me and say, oh no, that's wrong. You should not be doing that. But to really get our oneness and really get how our Creator created us to be our own creators of our lives, really requires us to let go of the whole world of good and bad, of this separation, of this duality. Now, there's a problem you may experience when I suggest getting rid of this whole way of looking at the world of good and bad, this duality. Especially if you, as we all have experienced some kind of pain. If you've experienced some kind of pain in this world at the hands of other people, and I know some of us, me included, it's been a little bit on the severe side. Some of us might say we've had abuse, trauma. I get it. If you have experienced that, then you want to call the people who did it wrong or bad. I get it. I truly do. My wife gets it also. We've both been in this boat, as you probably are also. And there's a part of you that may really internally want to scream out loud, it just wasn't right the way I was treated. I get it. It wasn't right. But there's all the difference in the world between saying it's not right and it's not wrong. Saying it's not wrong does not make it right. It just takes it out of the world of duality. Now, the reason you may want to consider leaving the world of duality, of right and wrong, and embracing the unity, the oneness of everything, of all of us human beings, no matter what we're doing. Now, you still get to choose what you want in your life and what you don't. And some of those things people are doing, I'd agree with you. I don't want those people in my life either. At the same time, I choose not to call them wrong. I choose to have compassion because I know what's gone into creating them to be the way they are. Now, what I'm sharing with you is on the intellectual level. If you've got some trauma, you do need to heal the trauma. And there's lots of techniques for doing that. You need to do your inner child work and your energy release and emotional release and clearing limiting beliefs. That's not for this video. Take a look at some of our other videos and we'll give you some hints about how to clear that. But I want to end by inviting you to join us in walking the path of non-duality, of understanding the Garden of Eden and the tree of knowledge of good and bad as something that's our creation. And we can recreate this world without calling things by these good and bad names. And by doing that, we get not only the unity of the world, we get to release all the pain we've all been carrying. And when we release it, then we can fully embrace our power and become the creators God truly created us to be. So join us on this path. Looking forward to seeing you on another video. Bye for now.